Welcome, everybody. It is the Daily News right here on Canadian Football Perspective. Start your season off right with products from our partners at Fox 40. Outfit your coaching staff with custom logoed Fox 40 whistles, gear, coaching boards, and more. Visit fox40shop.com. Use the code CFP15 at checkout for 15% off of your entire order. Mike Daly was signing autographs. Tim Hortons Field. How about that?
Oh, it was weird, man. Going back as an alumni. It was cool, though. It was cool. Like, the fans there are awesome. Yeah, it was fun. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it going back, doing all that stuff, but it was fun. The fans were awesome. They were all saying, hey, I had a personal chauffeur of Andy Fantu's walking me around. Wow. So it's always a good time. But there's parts of that stadium, and I mean, I played there for 8 years, and there's parts of that stadium that I hadn't seen yet. There's
Really?
like a club in the back left. I walked in there, and there's a DJ going on. I'm like, looking around. Andy's like, yeah, this is here.
Welcome to the alumni life, bro. Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, that's wild. But going off of that, what a wild game, eh? And you get to call that. Those are like kind of your dream things, right? Of
course, yeah. That's what it's all about. That's why I love what I do, and I love calling and being around the CFL for a lot of reasons. But the biggest one, I think, is that even if it's two winless teams, even if it's, you can have a game where there's not a great crowd turnout, or you can have a game where it's a bad time slot, or what, the game always delivers. Like, it's the thing I've always said about the CFL is, like, at some point, every single weekend, you're going to have a moment that makes your jaw drop. And this weekend, there was a whole bunch of them for a bunch of different reasons. But it's, the game always delivers. The football bounces in funny ways and crazy things happen. And I mean, the Kamar Jordan catching it in the end zone, punching it in the air, and it gets intercepted. Battle of undefeateds. You got Montreal collapsing and Edmonton coming back in their house with their third string quarterback taking 16 penalties for 193 yards. You got Duke Williams chucking a helmet at Toronto defensive backs in Wolfville in front of a packed house of like crazy Atlantic fans, which is super fun to see. You got our game that goes down to 6 inches away from maybe hitting the uprights and bouncing in after Hamilton decides not to go for 2 points at the end of the game, which could have cost them the whole damn thing and they'd still be winless. It's like, whoa, like coming out of that weekend, I'm like,
that's just 1 week.
I'm like, how was that one weekend of football? Honestly, that was the thing that I was driving home from the stadium. I was like, I feel like I need a cigarette and a drink to just like sit here at the end of the weekend and be like, whoa, I have no idea how this happened.
Right. Also, I came out the other end of this, but it was funny because I got to do a little bit. I'm encroaching on your turf now.
I know, I love it.
I started doing a little post-game stuff with a few of the guys there. And actually, Andy had asked Coach O, why didn't you go for 2?
Yeah.
And Coach O said, well, because I was like, yeah, well, they could get the rouge. Maybe it's a little easier to get a rouge than a long field goal. But Andy was like, no, it doesn't make, like, you got to go for 2 because it doesn't matter. Like, you got to make sure that if they kick that field goal, it's ties, whatever. But Coach O was like, they have the best punter in the league. So when I'm looking at it, I don't want him to be able to bomb one into the end zone to get the single. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like, there was some background knowledge with that. But does it become easier if you punt it? Because, I mean, you can travel a punt further, but the cover team's got to get there.
And you're 17 yards back from the line of scrimmage when you're punting. So it's the question of, like, you're losing 10 yards to where the punter is standing versus where the field goal attempt is coming from. So, yeah, if the ball was spotted in that same place and they had that situation,
I don't think he gets it to the goal line.
No, you wouldn't be able to. And even if you did, the coverage team's not going to get down there fast enough. And you're going to have 3 returners back spread out across the goal line so that no matter where the ball goes, you're going to catch it, get out to the 10 and take a nail down just like they did on the missed field goal, right? It was caught, ran out 10 yards, slide down, game's over. Yeah, I agree.
You usually what we would do is we'll put 4 people back there. We'll take the punter and the kicker, put them back there and take your 2 return guys. Yeah. So you get 2 return guys that can run it out. Or if it goes into the back of the end zone, you can have a punter, kicker catch it and boom it out of there. But yeah, I was thinking about that because I was like, it's got to travel a pretty far away. And I even think about what you're saying, either 15 yards back, you're right, because then I think it doesn't make it to the goal line.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, this is one of those things that I think coaches, and to be fair to Coach O, like I you know how much I respect his acumen and you have great respect for all of his football decision-making abilities. But I honestly think that sometimes in the heat of the moment, when you've got 30 seconds to make a decision on something like that, you just go, let's, and I understand there's people in the booth and they're giving you the analytics but that was one of those where if he believed that in the moment, I think he probably goes home, and as he's assessing it with a couple hours distance from having to make the choice, he's like, yeah, I probably should have gone for 2 there. Like it's in a
And
sober
people
moment
don't
of judgment.
understand that, right? Because what they do is they'll see it and then they'll think about it and then they'll think about it again and then they'll think about it again, have the conversations like we did, and then go, you know what? Yeah, maybe I would have went for 2. Or, oh yeah, maybe the Rouge would be easier to get. You don't have time. You have the play before, or maybe the drive before where you're like, okay, if we score, this is what we'll do. And he does that. But to continue on, and I do have a ton of respect for Coach. I think he's the best coach I've had, and it just goes to show because Khari Jones gets signed by Hamilton. And I'm telling you, man, we talked about this to end of what kind of coach he is, but to just be able to add a guy like that and be able to get him, frankly, on the cheap because of what happened, right? And now he gets to come in and all that culture stuff we were talking about with VA and everybody that's involved with Montreal, that just automatically upgrades your team. I don't care if he says a thing football, him being in there, seeing what he's going through and seeing his probably positive attitude. I'd imagine day 1 and 2, 3, everyone's going to be like, man, it is awesome to have a guy like this.
I've already heard that he was on field with the Ticats at practice today as we're recording this on Monday, and he spoke to Dane, and apparently the connection immediately was one of great respect, open communication. Let's get this thing going. And I think some people, and some people were, I think, surprised by the assistant football ops, blah 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 blah. I will say this, for all the things that we talk about with the Ticats, one of the things that makes me laugh about that organization, whoa, they can come up with a job title. Like when it was Sean Burke and Drew Allemang, and it's senior director of football operations and assistant general manager and Canadian director of scouting, and then Berkey's every time we had to introduce them on radio, I would be Googling their job title because I'm like, I think it changed again, and I think that it's 7 more words. And so today when I see Khari get hired and I saw the length of the job title, I was like, you literally could have put underneath his name that dude. It could have been like Khari Jones. Yeah, Khari Jones is hired as football guy. He'll be in the building. He'll help with a little bit of everything. And it was the assistant to football operations, blah blah blah. Even what Ed Hervey has right now, whatever job title they gave him, I'm like, just call him an assistant GM, or just call Allemang something shorter. Or I always laugh at that with the Ticats. So that one, because I saw people today who were like, why didn't they name him an offensive consultant? I'm like, he is.
Right.
The title doesn't matter.
Consultant. They're all going to sit in the same room and talk about everything they know and why something works, why they like something. It doesn't matter about the title. I remember, so speaking of titles, when I was talking with Michael Falds of Laurier, because I'm going to be coaching there. He's like,
breaking news.
Breaking news. Yeah. Coaching on Laurier. He goes, listen, I know in this world, titles matter. He goes, so what title do you want? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. So now what I'm thinking is Ticats bring someone in and they're like, okay, there's keywords, right? There's keywords on these resumes. So there's senior director, there's personnel, there's scouting, there's coordinating. Let's just put them all together. And then that can be your title. All these keywords together so that when somebody asks, hey, what's your resume? You say, I've done it all. I've literally done it all.
I'm going to have to whip up a Photoshop of the Khari Jones graphic and send it out from CFP with this podcast and just be like, we talk about Khari Jones in this episode and just be Khari Jones, football guy. And that'll be the label. Also, I want to play this. This is a throwback to when we used to do Marshall Mello on TSN 1150 in Hamilton. Jack Armstrong of the Raptors had a fantastic take that I clipped on the title consultant. Okay, consultant. Here you go. Hang on a second. I got to turn on the volume on this. Jack Armstrong on consultant.
Tell you what, when I die, I definitely want to come back as a consultant because that's one of the greatest scam jobs. You come in and you say, well, you maybe can fix this, fix that, and then at the end of the day, you walk away and it's not your problem.
It's true, man.
Yeah, we were talking about somebody who had been fired in an NBA organization, and somebody came in as a consultant, and he just like started spinning on it. He's like, yeah, people come in as consultants all over the place, and they just make their money, and they say, fix that, not my problem. Okay, bye, see you later.
Yeah. Well, isn't that what Wally Buono was trying to get? Remember when he was like, yeah, the coaches are too young. They don't have enough experience. You should probably hire some of these older guys to come in and be a consultant to talk about. And that's just like a training camp. Hey, give me a big fat check to come in for training camp and tell you. Hey,
and Wally also was appointed to Edmonton to try and help with their coaching search by Victor Cui, I believe, and the football operations department kind of hooked that up. And it was big news. Whoa, BC Lions lifer, essentially. Like, I know he was with Calgary and otherwise, but like, I can't believe Wally Buono is helping out Edmonton, like a team in the West Division. And apparently he made suggestions. I had heard of like 3 or 4 different people. And then the organization was like, we actually kind of paid a lot of money to Jason Moss and to Scott Milanovich and to Brock Sunderland and to Jamie Elizondo. So we just need somebody who can like be the head coach and the defensive coordinator and the linebackers coach. And Chris Jones, he fits that mold. So let's go with the guy. And he'll also be the general manager and the senior director of player personnel consultant.
We've wasted a lot of our money already, and we can't spend any more money. We need somebody that does it all.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess Wally came in, got paid to be a consultant, made those suggestions as to who was going to be doing what job. And then they were like, we're actually going to go this way. And he was like, okay, cool.
Thanks.
Like I did the consultant thing, so I appreciate you guys, and all the best.
Thanks for the paycheck, guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it goes. So anyways, let's get to today's guest, Mike Daly. Who have you wrangled here to appear on the Daily News?
Yeah, I got Lirim Hajrullahu. Yeah, I've practiced that last name about 100 times. But no, a teammate with the Ticats right now. He was just signed by Dallas Cowboys again because he did so well. Yeah, so his story's crazy. So coming from Kosovo, escaped a war-torn country to come over into Canada, learning English in high school, getting into football. You'll figure out the positions. We talk about the different positions he played, soccer player, and then just kind of attaches to kicking and goes to Western, does really well, does some extra stuff within the community. But what I was excited about is right now he's finally landed this spot with Dallas.
Yeah.
But before this, he was, one of the best kickers in the CFL in the league. Did a bunch of things to prepare himself for the NFL, and then just kind of grinded his way around the teams and different tryouts and traveling and going through all of that. And, we talked a little bit, and the reason I wanted to get him on here is because he talks about, his opportunities and really maximizing them. And when you compare the NFL to the CFL, right, he's making sure that his future's set up, because you make an NFL team and you play 1 year. I mean, you're going to make almost your career earnings in the CFL in that 1 year. So he knows his time's now. He knows, if it's going to happen for him and his family, it's going to happen right now. So he is putting everything he can into it. So I figured I hadn't talked to him in a little bit other than a couple of texts. So I want to get him on here and see what he's doing, see how he's feeling. And it was a great conversation.
Yeah, he's a great get. He's a great guy to talk to, whether it's on or off microphone. And I'll say this as well. I don't know if he actually ended up reaching it, but I remember Corey Greenwood was sticking it out, trying to get to a certain number of games in the NFL because he was trying to get his NFL pension. Because he had spent a lot of time being a player in the NFL, had made his money, but the pension's a whole other story. Like, the money keeps coming in if you play a certain number of games. And I believe when he was released from Kansas City, he was like 12 games shy of the pension or something like that. And I don't know if he ended up actually getting to that number. The number escapes me what it even was or what the background, but I remember reading that at one point and I was like, man, I do not blame that guy for a second for scratching and clawing and trying to being like, I will clean the bathrooms if you will let me dress for 12 more games. Because that's such a difference maker. But let's listen in here. As always, I like to throw to these interviews, if I have it, of a funny old call that I made. This is the Lirim Hajrullahu game-winning field goal against Edmonton back in 2018. I believe I used the former name of the team here, so don't kill me. At the time, we didn't know they would be changing their team name. But here is Lirim Hajrullahu, whose game-winning field goal and right into his interview on the Daily News right here on Canadian Football Perspective.
The short snapper is Aaron Crawford. The holder is Luke Tasker. The kicker is Lirim Hajrullahu. Snap is back. Hold is down. Kick is up. And Hajrullahu through the uprights. Time expires. Ticats win. They take the season series on the Edmonton Eskimos.
All right, Big L. I am excited. I'm excited to have you on, man. Lirim, what's going on? How you been?
Good, man. Thank you for having me, guys. I've listened to a few of your podcasts, so I felt honored when you asked me to.
What was your favorite? Was it Dane? Was it Luke? Was it Jeremiah? What would you like?
No, it was Medlock for sure. They stick together, man.
Hey, honestly, Luke is one of my favorite people, and like he's just like such a genuine guy. And like obviously, I have the best experiences with him, just because like our relationship on the field, but as well as off the field too. So it's he's one of my favorite guys.
Hey, do you keep up? Because like you and I keep up, every now and then we shoot a couple messages back and forth. But do you keep up with a ton of the guys still that we played with? Are you still keeping up? And they're probably reaching out when you're signing with this team, signing with that team, kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah, no, I keep in check with a lot of guys that we played with, guys that like I've helped coach as well from the kicker standpoint, and even like I even reached out to Cote that one game. I think it was like week 2 or 3, and he like had a really good game and just missed like a 17-yarder or whatever. And I happened to watch that game, and I just shot him a message being like, hey man, because I've been through those moments, and being a young guy like he is now, it's like I remember one of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers greats, he had always said it was like, if you play long enough in this league, you're gonna have kicks like that, you're gonna have moments like that. And long behold, he hasn't missed a kick in like 3 or 4 weeks now. So like, he's playing really well. So it's, I try to keep in touch with some of the guys, and even with Dane last week or 2 weeks ago when he had that, and Jeremiah's injuries, like I keep in touch with the league and some of those guys that we played with. And it's just like, just send them a quick note. 'Cause I know they're always like, even Jeremiah would always like send me a nice message whenever I'd sign somewhere. Dane, same thing. And we have some mutual friends too in the kicking world. So it's just like, just stay intact and support each other. And, that's all we try to do. Is it goes beyond the field with us, that.
Yeah. Well, you guys too, especially as like a kicking group.
Yeah.
You guys are like this like small, tight knit community. Like the best way I can put it is like, a private community in the Hamptons or something. You know what I mean? Like if you could all live together and gate up your area, you guys wouldn't. All you do is just talk about holders and how much they suck and how your cover team screwed you guys and all that kind of stuff. But
it extends to special teams coaches too. Like every game that I'm working in the CFL, Mike, you look down at the field and it's always the specials guys like rubbing shoulders and talking strategy. Hey, did you see that kick last week? I'm like, you guys are weird. You just want to talk to each other.
Exactly.
100%. It's like a little fraternity, they call it,
Yeah, but you guys keep pretty close, because I know, the thing that I keep seeing pop up, especially with you, and now what seems like almost all the kickers in the CFL is with Coach Kick, right? And are you still involved with that, even though you're kind of doing the, like Dallas now, but when you were bouncing around?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Daryl Wheeler, he played with both you guys back in the day. He runs it out of London, and then Coach Kick and I do it out of Hamilton. And honestly, with him, we try to, like, our biggest thing was like he always wanted to do something for the kicking like game. He's like so passionate, and he always wanted, like, because you go down the States, like I've been there and I've gone through these things. And when I'm coming out of school, it's like you go down to one of these kicking camps, you're paying $600 US to go kick 10 times. And then you get ranked by a point system of how many kicks you made. And based on how many times you go, the more points you get, and the more how you get ranked, like a 4-star, 5-star, or whatever. So you can understand where this goes. And it's like a huge money. Like you got to have like a good backing of like financial help.
That's a pyramid scheme. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Well, and our whole thing has always been is like I started off as a project because Coach Kick like helped me so much throughout my development coming out of, like, I met him like my last year of high school, And so I just wanted to help him because he always had this idea of giving like young kickers an outlet to kick instead of flying down in the States and spending all this money, hotel, flight, food. Like it had, like for one weekend, you're spending $2,000. And if you're not old enough to go on your own, you bring a parent with you, right? So that stuff adds up. So we always try to do something to help develop the kicking game. And I think it's like I started off as a project. We had a camp at BMO in London, like 2012. And from there, it's kind of just built it to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to run the Hamilton to have the GTA guys come. So we'll go either at Redeemer or at Players Paradise. And then Daryl will have it on Saturday nights in London. And so it gives like all these kids in our community or in Ontario the opportunity. It's like, hey, if you're able to make it like throughout the week in Hamilton, then we're going to have these sessions Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then if the weekday doesn't work because your parents or whatnot, we also have London. It's a little bit further down, but it's a London at nighttime. So you can go down there. Doesn't really like, it's late at night, which makes it a little bit more affordable. So like kids can come out and, you know, because renting those fields, you know, in the wintertime, like during peak hours is like $300 a quarter, you know what I mean? So it can get really costly. So but yeah, he's still running it. He still has a few guys going there and just like helping a lot of the college kids right now. And our biggest thing has always been just giving these kids an outlet to like, it's okay to go. Like we never shot, like we have two guys right now going to Carney's in California, which Carney played in the NFL for like 23 years. I've gone to him. I respect him. I know what he teaches. I've been there many times with him, and he's one of the best guys that we recommend if you're going to go down the States, just because of his IQ in the football game. And he actually doesn't charge you like an arm and a leg. You know what I mean? He's got great facility. Sorry.
And it's crazy though, too, because that's kind of the football world for a lot of Canadian kids, at least playing up here, right? Is like, if you want to get any exposure, you got to go. And this is even outside of kicking too. I remember when I was doing some recruiting for McMaster, like you're battling against these like prep schools and like D3s that are like, hey, come down here. You can pay full tuition or like come to all these different camps, these scouting camps. And it's just, it's the same thing everywhere.
Yeah, and like we even have one of our guys that he was one of the top linebackers, committed to Western, and then all of a sudden came because of COVID. He's like, I don't come back for another year. And then he like throughout whole COVID, he spent like 2-3 days a week. Like him and Mark Milan, which went to McMaster, like they've been a glue to me. So I'll kick 3 times a week, and they'll come with me, and we'll be out there for hours. And this guy I'm talking about, his name's Anthony Veneri, and he's actually got a really good shot to play at University of Buffalo. So instead of, you know, like, but he went with his dad, he did the old school of like going to each school's little camps instead of going to these like tryouts or like these like kicking camps. They went to like each individual school. They just went last year for like 10 or 15 days. They started like, I forget where they started. I think like in Arkansas, and just based on the relationships that I had and Daryl had, it's like, hey, like it was basically like all my holders in the CFL, they all have like quarterback jobs. You know, like Logan Kilgore was like at Arkansas State, Brian Braun was at Purdue, and it was just like, hey, I got a kid, like, and this kid's like very talented. Like I expect him to be like, if not drafted in the NFL, like CFL, no problem. Like he already has like, he's already hitting 65, 70, and he's built like a brick shit house. Like he's bench pressing like three.
Hey, like you were too, right? Like listen, so I didn't have to do much.
At 18, like, you know,
fair.
It's different. But anyways.
Hey, but didn't you play when you were in high school? Didn't you play different positions? I remember you telling me. I remember you telling me on the bus. That you played O-line to start.
Yeah, bro. Listen, we had a big.
I have never
heard guard. That before. we had a big guard. He was like 6'5", 6'6", and he was a big boy. And anytime I couldn't handle it, I just had to take half the man. He's like, Lirim, just push him my way as long as we're not running like a 34 dive, because I was I was like a right tackle.
I was going to say, were you the tackle or the center?
No, the tackle. So anytime like I needed help, he's like, just take half this outside body and just push him into me, and I'll grab onto him.
Who's the coach who has the 6'5" kid and puts you at tackle and him at guard?
Hey, our school is like, he was actually named one of the top high school coaches in like Canada. But you know what? Like I held my own and until I met some really strong guys in some games. But you know,
Hey,
like
what a transition, eh? O-line and kicker.
I played linebacker. I played a little linebacker because like we're a small school, like 800 kids, 850, you know, so like you know, you have like 30, 40 kids, and like by the time you're in fifth year, you're like the only time I was off the field is when the other kicker was kicking. You know what I mean? So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
that was fun, man.
Let me ask you this,
yeah.
Lirim, is that when you're talking about, you know, whether Mike's battling when he's recruiting with these like D3 and with these random schools that are coming up, and you're talking about kickers that you send down to people that you kind of view as gurus, and there's whether it's your journey, Brett Maher, Sergio Castillo dipping his toes in the NFL waters, like Tai Long, like there's these guys that have been through the CFL, and whether they're Canadian or American, there's a billion different ways to get there. And you are such a great example of this. And I'm wondering for you, if you could suggest one path for a Canadian kicker, what's the one path that you would say, try to do it this way? Because I know that you can do it any which way, and you've had the ups and the downs, and I can't work here, and then I got to come back, and then I'll take a job there, and then I'll spring league and all that. Like it's all, your journey is amazing. But if you could try and suggest it from high school forward, what would you aim for a kicker in Canada to head towards? What would you give them as the best possible path if they can complete it?
Yeah, I think the best possible path, I think, is the one with like that we kind of created for this guy named Anthony Veneri that I was telling you that went to Buffalo. Because right off the bat, if you're not like, because you're in a Canadian school, like it's really difficult for you to be exposed to American schools and with visas and scholarships, because now you count as international. Right. So it's just like when international kids come to Canada, they're not paying the $5-7 grand that we would pay at Western McMaster, right, for each year of tuition. They're paying 27 grand. So same thing goes to them. It's like you have to find a school that's going to be willing to take you on as international scholarship, which is going to be like 3-4 times more as everybody else. So that's the hard part about it. The best scenario, like if you can like dream of a situation, I think it's coming back for an extra year of high school. I think that gives you the year maturity that I think in the Canadian system we lack because we start football later.
I agree.
So
I agree 100% with you.
Yeah. But it's also like, because you see Florida and like California, Texas, all these, they have summer like all year round. You know what I mean? Like their coldest day is like 10 degrees in December. So like they're able to have these sports and be able to train. Like I'll go in the wintertime in January and train in like California or Florida just so I can kick outside for just like a week. Do you know what I mean? So they have the opportunity or that fortune up there. But if you're a high school kid, I think it's coming back for an extra year. And if you're financially able, is to try to go to high school in the States for at least 1 year, because there's a lot of private schools and you see a lot of kids doing this now. I don't know if you guys know Curtis Bell. He used to play in the CFL, and he was wide receiver for Toronto Argonauts, and he has like 3 or 4 boys, and 2 of them have gone down to the States. One is at Maine now, and the other one is at one of the top schools. I think it's like Clearwater in Florida.
Yeah.
And so like the easiest pathway, which is going to a school in the States in high school, spending at least a year there, but you have to go to like a really good high school to get noticed, and then from there be able to sign on as I don't know if the rules would be different in different states in terms of if you're international or not, but at least you've played American football, which is like half the battle. And then going from there, because once you play American ball and the way the system works, I think it's a lot easier. I know for kickers, it's like if you've played at least 2 years of NCAA, you're most likely like 9 out of 10 times you're going to get drafted in the CFL. No matter like how you're not, like as long as you're like above 50%, you've been drafted, you're going to get drafted. Which 50% is like terrible.
This is the other kind of the extension of that journey, as well as that every year I'm covering the CFL draft on TSN and for CFL.ca, and every year there's a couple of random kickers, right? There's guys
I've never heard of.
I've like JJ Molson was even one for me where I was like, who the hell? And I was like, UCLA. I'm like, wow, cool logo. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what's the backstory here? And then for me, I'm always intrigued by the idea we have a 9-team league, and you're constantly looking for the next guy or the challenger or the one who's going to push the current kicker or but you end up having, whether it's like your Ronnie Peffers, Tyler Crapina is coming in, where it's like no, Rennie Paredes is just going to keep that job and just keep kicking and kicking and kicking and kicking and kicking. And it's like, because we're such a small league in Canada, I'm always intrigued by the idea of like, yeah, they'll take you in the 6th, 7th round. But it's like, how do you actually crack into that group when it's such a small opportunity? And there's all of these kickers around the league that, not all of them, but many of them are planted in that spot. They own those roles.
I came in and Winnipeg was the only actual true open spot, and it was between myself and Brett Mahar.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like every year there's max one. Like we have, like you're speaking, Rene Paredes, we have one of our kickers out there, Kieran Burnham, like amazing preseason.
St. FX kid, yeah.
Yeah, killed it. And he's like one of the guys that we've like kind of helped throughout. But now it's like he's stuck on a PR because of Rene is killing it. He's doing really well. So what are you going to do? And it's like, if you trade him, well, you don't know if Rene is going to retire next year or if he's going to play another 10 years. So it's like, for those guys, it's like the patience you have to have. And it all comes down to, I'm sure you've heard, is how bad you want it. Because there's kids out there. It's like, okay, like there are kids and like not kids, men like are good enough to play. It's just about opportunity and timing. And I can speak about that for an hour just based on my experiences just in the last 2-3 years alone.
Well, you know I mean? Man, I remember talking to you, and while you're doing this NFL carousel right now, like, and there's articles written about it where it's like, hey, Lirim went to Cowboys camp. Hey, Lirim went to Washington. Lirim went to Carolina, and he is statistically better than the other kickers at camp. But for whatever reason, because of all of that extra stuff that you're talking about, it's the group, it's, signing bonuses, it's draft pick style, wherever they get them. You're in this weird world of every camp I go to, every workout I go to, I'm doing really, really well. But what the heck's going on? Yeah,
honestly, like you have to like be at right place, right time, because there's a lot of like, even it's not just kickers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, look at the quarterback situation. It's
everything.
In Ottawa, like Mazzoli was the guy. And then obviously, unfortunate incident happened. And now it's like, okay, well, Ottawa's going to be scrambling for a new quarterback. Okay, they pick one off of the trade block. But it's like being that second or third guy there now, like your opportunity to possibly play just happened. And like sometimes it takes an injury. Sometimes it takes, someone missing a kick or missing a play to get your opportunity. And for these kickers, it's like, it's how long you want to kind of be able to pursue that. And a lot of that comes from obviously your support at home, whether you have a family, kids, and all that stuff, because they all have a play in your situation. So there is a lot of kids that probably deserve to play CFL, NFL, NCAA, whatever you call it. But it's just honestly sometimes just comes down to pure like opportunity and timing. Because I've been in workouts where guys are less than 50% and they get signed. You know what I mean? Like it's, like, or like I can go on all day about that, but I think the biggest thing is just being in the right place, right time. Is like, that's something you can't really control. You know
well, and it's good to see now, because I mean, you're signed back with the Cowboys at this moment, right? Which is awesome because you were there before. You got picked, all that kind of stuff, and now they know who you are. Yeah, exactly. But they know who you are, and that's just that's the kicking world, right? Like generally, the other positions, you'll get maybe 1 or 2 shots with other teams, but most of the time they're not going to bring you back.
Yeah.
But because of the kicking world, you do well. And then now the needs there again. So it's, we know Lirim's going to do well. It's one spot will bring you back, right? It's a weird world, man, for the kickers.
Yeah. And the kicker is one thing too. It's not a play, like a position where you can, like a team can develop you. It's like very rare that the team will keep you unless you're like a young buck. They like drafted you and it's like, okay, this guy has got a big leg, big potential, which like potential is really not a word that, gets accepted around the NFL. But it's like, for kickers, you don't need to learn a playbook. You need to be able to just kick that ball. And then whether you do development, like very rarely will a team keep you around to develop you. It's like, go home and do it yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
you miss a couple kicks. It doesn't matter how young, how big of a leg you have. At some point, they're like, well,
that's what
happens.
That's what I'm wondering about is like, given your background, it feels like based on what I've seen from afar, you've been unfairly, and I'm saying this because I like you and I might be biased, but I think there's been some moments in your journey where you've been unfairly characterized as, well, he's just that guy from blank, or he played in blank, or it's like, no, I know this for a fact because I've talked to you about this. When you go to those places, you go to those camps and you outperform those people, regardless of the signing bonuses and the contracts and the draft picks and all of the stuff that makes roster building what it is. How razor thin do you feel like on a kick-to-kick basis in your National Football League career, your margin for error is? Because that's a hell of a way to live professionally, to know I got to make all of these and I got to be spot on all of these. Because I get the sense that for you, you got less room to wiggle than a lot of other guys you're around in camps.
Yeah, I think for me, it was more or less, that was last year, because like the NFL didn't know who I was. You know what I mean? So like, even in the reason I joined the spring league is because I've never played like American rules football. You know, just some of the feedback we can get with my agent. And it was just like, hey, like, I know this league is for free, but like, it might give you the opportunity to get some extra film. There's nothing really going on right now. And it's like, okay. But for me, like the way, like, I feel like the CFL for kickers, like this year, it's been a little bit easier, I think, because the hashes are in. But before, when the hashes were out and you're playing in like open size, like football fields, like the way some of our stadiums are built, which is less favorable for kickers, I find the CFL was way harder than NFL. Like, because you in a lot of the NFL stadiums, it's like you're kicking great weather. You might be probably kicking inside, and very rarely, unless you're playing Buffalo or Chicago, you're not really getting a windy game. You know what I mean? So for me, I personally thought I had the edge. And that's why when I went to workouts, I felt like I had the edge, because I've been through, no matter what, like when I went to try out for Carolina, my first year, like it was like -2 and it barely ever rains or snows there. So like for me mentally, I'm like, I've been training in snow for the last month. You know what I mean? Like, like, so I was like geared and ready.
I was born in the dark.
You know? So to make a long story short, it's like last year, I think it was my like kryptonite was like, we don't know who he is. And it's like, we don't know if he has the kickoff leg. That was like another one. And it's like, okay, so preseason, bang, kicked all my kickoffs through the end zone. You know what I mean? Made all my extra points. And it's just like knocking down these barriers, because that's what basically they were for me. It's like, we don't know this guy. Yeah, he played in the CFL. Yeah, but it's like, I shouldn't say some teams or some scouts are more reluctant to like be like, okay, put this guy in, right? So I think me getting a shot with the Cowboys, getting the preseason, okay, this guy can kick off, okay, we're good. Like he can make like the kicks he's supposed to make, we're good. And then that gave the confidence to bring me back in week 2, just in case something happens to Zerline. And then he had a really good game. They're like, hey, listen, it is what it is. Then COVID happened. Both Brett and myself, we competed for that day. Both really great days. I had the edge over him, and I was able to play that game. And now all of a sudden, I'm getting a regular season shot. So I felt like last year was like, I was breaking down those barriers, and then that's how I was signing Washington. And then from there, Carolina saw what I did in preseason, so they're like, okay, this guy can play, and that's why I got the opportunity there. So I think I've knocked a lot of those down. It's just a matter of breaking that barrier. It's like with anything, it's breaking that barrier and showing what you can do. Because like I know what I'm capable of. I've proven it, but it's like they need to have the confidence that, hey, what you've done in CFL can translate to the NFL.
And a lot of what you were doing too is what some people don't know is that you're able to use a puck. So you call it a puck or a kicking tee, right? And in the CFL, it helps you get, correct me if I'm wrong, but lift on every one of your kicks. Yeah. But you, into your last year in Hamilton, you're like, you know what? I can make the NFL. I need to do this. And you're like, nah, I don't want to use a puck. I'm going to show I can kick off the ground, because that's how they do in the NFL. So Lirim, for that last season, ditched the puck. And he was like, no, I'm showing them that I can kick off the ground.
And hit the winner in Edmonton, right? Because I remember we talked about that.
Yeah, the winner. And then we also, the perfect game, perfect season at home. We hit the last field goal for Rob, what's his last name? Number 42.
Hitchcock.
Yeah. So it was last home season game. We had been 7-0, 42-yard line, number 42, and we kicked it to win the game. So that was like a chill moment. But to go to your point, it's like that was the other thing too. It's like I'd always kick off the ground during the off season because I'd go down to these NFL free agent camp, just this, hey, get a shot maybe, or prepare myself for future. And eventually, like I made the decision. It's like, I'm going to do this. And I think it helped me a lot at Timorans Field because it's so windy, to be honest, because once that ball gets above those uprights, it's like not controllable. And you'll see it with Damagala because he has such a strong leg. Like if he went off the ground, I feel like he'd improve even more. But it's like a mental switch that you need to do. Like I even had a coach, I won't name him, but he had come up to one of our like we're in training camp, and he comes to me and he's just like, Lirim, put the puck back on. I know why you're doing this. You know what I mean? And I'm like, obviously, like obviously you have a goal, like a personal goal, but like I know I was confident enough that I can kick without a tee because I would do it all the time in the off season and then just put the tee back on. But it's just like, for me, it was just taking that risk because it's like I always wanted to live with the moment of like I tried. Versus then like the living with like regret.
I love that. I love the idea of like coach comes up and says like, hey, put it back down. I understand what you're trying to do. You're like, leave me alone, coach. Let me eat. I want to make that NFL.
Coach.
For me, it was like
the NFL.
Yeah. But for me, it wasn't like because he's like, I know why you're doing it. And it's like, listen, like but strategically, I feel like it helped me. And the fact that I had Luke Tasker made me feel a lot more comfortable.
Right.
Because and Luke also he's like, I prefer off the ground more than like the tee. And like my last year with Luke, because we were like automatic, like we missed he played 9 of his 18 games, I think, and I missed like 2 kicks with him. And then like because Dane started, like when you have a quarterback that plays, and then Jeremiah had gotten hurt, so my next best holder was Dane, right? And with Dane, it was like, you know, he just threw a touchdown. He's all hype. And it's like, okay, hey, we got to go and kick, you know? So it's the hardest thing with like having a starting quarterback. And, you know what I mean? And Luke is just like so experienced, thanks to Medlock, obviously. And because he was so like,
oh yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. But
can you tell when you're watching a game? This is something I find interesting from your perspective. Is when you're watching a game. For example, you mentioned the Cote kick that was missed. There was another one by Beatty, right? That was just like end of game. You're like, what the hell is that? I can't believe he missed that from so close in. The Beatty one, I forget who the holder was. It might have been Haggerty, who was like their international punter, I think that's in. But and it looked like at first glance it was just a total shank. And then you get the replay and it's like, well, was it on the puck? Was it kind of sideways? Was it in the wrong spot? Was the angle? And like, can you tell when you actually just watch a replay, oh, that's on the holder? Or is that a feel thing that you have to experience? Because from my eye, I see the ball go down and I'm like, hey man, looks good to me, but I don't have
on the ground.
I don't have the specificity that you do. So can you tell when you're watching a live replay of just like quickly, hey, that's on the holder. Everybody's going to blame the kicker for this, but that ain't on him.
Hey, I know. And we like, that's one thing as a kicker is like, you never direct that attention to the holder. You take it, like you missed, like, and that's another thing. It's like, if you have a tee and if he puts a little bit too much pressure on one side, that tee is going to tilt and there it goes. When you're off the ground, you can at least like adjust to it. But when you're on that tee, it's like if the holder puts a little bit too much pressure on one side, because it's like decently big, right? So like if you miss by like this corner or this corner, that means like you catching the ball, it's like golf. Imagine catching the ball on the inside versus the outside of your club, right? It can totally mess it up. And like the holder plays a huge role. And that's why like Luke Tasker and like some of the holders I've had, it's like, hey, like I'll buy you like whenever we go away games, I'll buy you dinner, whatever you need. Like I just need you like 5 minutes before practice, just so we can get locked in before we get going, because we don't know if we're going to have some kicks today. And then afterwards, if we can just work like 5-10 minutes, I'm not going to take like time out of your day. And like you really appreciate these guys and the time they put into it, because like the guys that like really like dial in, I've had some of the best years, like Logan Kilgore. Like I remember, because like that's like if you're a backup quarterback in the CFL, learn how to hold. You know what I mean? Like Logan Kilgore had what's his name? Oh gosh, in the quarterback in Cody Fajardo. I had him as well. Like I had all these guys that were backup quarterbacks, and it's like, hey, if I can hold for Lirim, I'm guaranteed a game check. And then if that quarterback one gets hurt, I'm in the game. So that gave him like an incentive to be like, hey, I'll help you out whenever you need it, but this is also going to help you out further down the road. So like Logan, my first year in Toronto, he would catch 100 snaps every single day after practice. And 100 snaps sitting down on one knee after like a 3-4 hour practice in training camp is freaking hell, dude. And he would sit there like, nope, I want to do this. And that was one of my best years in the CFL. And
well, it's such like a lose-lose position, I want to say, for Holder, right? Because when you hit a big kick, right, everyone's going to be like, man, Lirim hit that 55-yarder to win, whatever it is. But if you drop a snap, you'll never – that'll be like, oh, it's on the Holder. This guy sucks. Get him out of here. You know what I mean? It's like a lose-lose spot for them. So
the Holder and the snapper, dude, is like – it's unbelievable because it's like for them, it's – Crawford would always say, it's like, I've had one bad snap my whole life. And that's the one that gets the most attention. You know what I mean? Like
right.
You can snap 1,000 great ones, but you miss that one for a snapper, and it's like everyone's on your head for it. But to go to your point, like as a kicker, like if it's slowed down, obviously when you have it from far distance, you can't tell. But when you go up close, you can figure out what went wrong, because like sometimes it isn't on the kicker, and
Hey, so what I do want to get from you, because I know this was happening when you were doing the bouncing around between NFL tryouts, stuff like that. Did all 9 CFL teams call you? Or
I wouldn't say 9, because there's some, like we were talking about earlier, some of those teams are solidified.
Okay, so 8,
right?
8 then.
But teams like I keep in contact with a lot of them even to this day, like just to keep the communication there, because like eventually like I'm going to play as long as I can down here, but like I do love the Canadian game too, and I watch it a lot, and not just because the guys we know that play in it, but it's honestly like it's entertaining, and like I gotta figure out illegal ways to watch it when it's not on ESPN down here, and it's like you open one of these apps and it's like you get like 30 pop-ups. It's like, oh my gosh, like
would you send you my Rogers password?
I was gonna say,
is there such thing?
I think so.
Would you say, Lirim, that it is inevitable that at some point you play north of the border again? Because the way you're talking is like, I want to be here for as long as possible, but at some point, would you say it's fair to say, yeah, you know what, whenever this run ends, if it does happen to end and I want to keep playing, I'm inevitably going to do it in the CFL?
Honestly, I love the game. And even like we were talking about with Coach Kick earlier, I think I just want to be able to help progress it. And I think that's part of me being able to be like that guy that, hey, I'm not telling you this is how you do it. I'm showing you and I'm proving it to you at the highest level. So my number one thing is like I said earlier, it's like my number one goal with playing the NFL was make sure like I'm going to live this, because I want to be able to say that I tried it and I pursued it to my full potential, so I can live with the fact that if I fail at this, I failed at it, but I know at least I tried, versus being like, oh man, I should have tried the NFL. Oh man, I should have done this or should have done that. So for me, it's more or less like if the time comes, like I'm going to try and play down here as long as I can. And then, whatever the plans are to come up there, if, I still keep in contact with them and the opportunities are right, then I don't see why not. Like kickers can play till they're like 45. Look at John Ryan.
105.
Look at John Ryan. How old is John? He's like 38, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So maybe pull John Ryan. Yeah.
Listen, dude, I want to say good luck in Dallas this year. I can't wait to watch it. We'll keep in touch, but yeah, good luck, everybody. Go check out Lirim Kick and win a bunch of games for the Dallas Cowboys. But appreciate you coming on, man. Always do. It's always a good conversation.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.